Welcome to the hybrid, in-person and virtual meeting for the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Central Frontenac. Members of the public may join in person or virtually. My name is Susan Irwin, and I am chair of the committee, and I will introduce the members of the committee. Starting at my left, we have Nikki Gowdy, Cindy Kelsey, Duncan McGregor, Dan Meeks, Lynn Clegus, and Fran Smith. Also beside me, I have Abby McKinnon, who the applicants may well have been dealing with, and our communications officer, Chris Nelson. The format of the meeting follows the agenda posted online. Staff have also prepared a presentation for everyone to follow along with during the meeting, and this will be shown on the screen. I should back up for a moment and just mention that our planner, Jenny Kapusta, will be with us online. For each application, we follow this format. Oh, Bill Everett's online. Welcome, Bill. Obviously, I need my glasses adjusted because I can't see far. So thank you, Nikki. So the format of the meeting follows the agenda posted online. Staff, Jenny Kapusta, has prepared a presentation for everyone to follow along with during the meeting, and this will be shown on the screen. And we will follow this format. I, as the chair, introduce the file. The planner provides an overview of the application. We are then open to comments or questions from the applicant or their agent. We then turn to the committee members to ask any questions. The public then has the opportunity to ask questions. And then the committee as a whole deliberates and votes on the application. Voting will take place with members of the committee raising their hands or verbal confirmation if attending online. I will state when the vote is carried. All members of the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the new applications. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Central Frontenac before a decision is made, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. As of January 1, 2023, only persons specified in the Planning Act are permitted to appeal consent and minor variance applications. Township staff will be in touch following the meeting and will be forwarding a copy of the decision within 15 days to the applicant and anyone who has requested to be notified. Should you have any questions after the meeting, we encourage you to reach out to staff. The applicant, the minister, or any prescribed public body who has an interest in the matter may, within 20 days of making the decision or date of notice, appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal against the decision of the committee by filing with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee a notice of appeal. I'll now ask Chris to provide an overview of how members attending virtually can participate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once the meeting is open to the public, the chair will ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Members of the public attending virtually will be asked to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. This alerts us that you would like to speak. Staff will then notify the chair that someone would like to speak and then proceed to unmute your microphone. You will receive a notification that your microphone has been unmuted. Please wait a second after unmuting your microphone before speaking. If you're calling in by phone, please dial *9 when you would like to raise your hand during the meeting. You will hear a prompt on the phone that you have raised your hand and you will be notified when your microphone has been unmuted. This afternoon, it looks like we have one member of the public participating with us online and 2 in person.
There we go. In the unlikely account that we have connection issues, or I don't press the button, and the meeting cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting will be postponed and staff will be in touch with each applicant. A notice will also be posted on the township social media, letting you know. So let's call this meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is approving the agenda, which is moved by Dan Meeks and seconded by Duncan McGregor, that the November 12th, 2024 agenda be adopted as amended.
That's correct.
All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of that the minutes of October 8th, 2024 be adopted as presented, moved by Lynn and seconded by Nikki. Are there any amendments?
No, there is not.
No. So as presented. All in favor? Carried. Are there any deferred items?
No, there is not.
Are there any applications for consent?
No, there is not.
Then we are on to agenda item 7, and I see we have 3 applications for minor variance, starting with APPN 2024-0028 Newlands. And I'll turn it over to our planner, Jenny, to talk about this.
Oh, hello. Just one second. I should reshare my screen here. All right, there. You should be able to see it now, I believe.
Yes, we can, Jenny.
All right, excellent. Thank you. So this first application is a minor variance to permit the construction of a new storage shed with a setback of less than the normally required 30 meters from the high water mark of Charlotte Lake. Here on the screen, you can see the existing development on the property. So there's currently a cottage with deck. This image does show a boathouse, but that has since been demolished. So there's some limitations on the subject property that necessitated the request for minor variance. As you can see here shown in yellow is an existing right-of-way. So the right-of-way bisects the subject property in order to provide access to the neighbor to the east. Immediately behind this right-of-way, the land rises up in a high steep slope is what I have written, but really it's more of a cliff. So locating the shed greater than 30 meters is just not even possible, let alone practical. To the west of this developed area, the majority of the remainder of the property is wetlands. So there's really only limited space to put something on the property, and that space is where the applicant has requested to place this storage shed. So this application was circulated for review by Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. They conducted a site visit and did some measurements, and they concurred that the location was very limited due to the above noted reasons, so the steep slope and things. They did note also the slope between the area proposed for the structure and the shoreline does actually constitute an erosion hazard also, so that's greater than 3-to-1 ratio of height and higher than 3 meters in height for the slope. However, what they also noted was, while normally a slope stability analysis would be something they would request in this type of situation to ensure the construction didn't impact that slope, given the size of the storage shed being less than 160 square feet, they don't really have any concerns with regards to the stability of the slope. Additionally, this is an area that's been historically used as a driveway and parking for an RV, so it's fairly compact and stable in its current condition. They did note also that there's nothing required permission from MBCA to before development proceeds. There's no septic approval required as it's just a storage shed, and there was no public comments received regarding this application. So planning staff are recommending that, subject to any comments heard at the meeting tonight, that the committee approves this application as submitted and subject to conditions in the planning report.
Thank you, Jenny. Do we have the applicants online or in person?
We do. Mr. Newlands, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Okay. One moment. Okay. Please unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you. I'd just like to let council know that I'd like to go to the max allowable due to no storage at the cottage. I want to go to a 160 cubic feet, which is 10 by 16, not 10 by 15. It's the only change that I've got.
I believe in the correspondence that we had discussed, it will.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Abby. Sorry, I can't hear you.
I also cannot hear the audio from the room in there, but I can hear you, Mr. Newlands.
I know the application says 10 by 15, but I asked for it to be the limit that I can have without a permit, which I believe is 160.
Jenny,
Can you hear me on
answer that?
this microphone?
Oh, I can
This
hear you
one's
now.
working.
I can hear you now.
Okay, so in the email correspondence that we had together, Gord, the change to the application was intended to be 10 by 15.
That's because I
as
understood that was the limit.
the limit for the building code without a permit is 160 square feet.
Yeah, I understood it was 150.
Okay, Jenny, is that an amendment that we can make at this point?
Yeah, I can say if the committee would like to amend the approval to be 160 square feet instead of 150, I don't have any objection from a planning perspective for an extra 10 square feet.
Okay, so sorry if anybody wasn't able to hear that. Jenny said that that is something that she would support as a part of the application, and it's something that the committee could choose to approve. So we would just need to know that so that we can reflect that change in our resolution and the decision.
Is there anything else you need from me?
Nope, there would be nothing further required.
All right, thank you.
The only question I would have though is, does that mean he needs a building permit for it?
No, it would be 160 square feet or less. So that would be the maximum.
Okay. Any
Sorry, I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay. Lynn, is yours working?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have one question, and that is on the Conservation Authority application notices that we had. It said the square footage was 8.9 square meters. Does it matter if we're increasing it to the larger square meters now?
So I had discussed this with Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, and they had approved the enlarged size as an amendment to the application, and they didn't have any further objections.
Do we have any comments from members of the public? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Nikki, seconded by Dan Meeks, that minor variance application 2024-0028 Newlands for concession 8, part lot 14, geographic township of Olden, be approved to permit the construction of a 160 square feet accessory storage building to be located a minimum of 6 meters, 19.7 feet from the high water mark of Sharbot Lake. Is there someone trying to make a comment? Oh, okay.
Where did you get that number from?
Sorry, are you referring to the 160 square feet?
No, the 19 feet from the lake.
That was what was written in the planning report, unless I'm mistaken, Jenny. Can you confirm that dimension?
Yes, I'm just gonna bring that up right now. Yes, so based on the application information, the planning report did say 6 meters or 19.7 feet from the high water mark.
Okay. It'll probably be less than that because the shed will be turned to the 10-foot side rather than the original size shed requested.
When you say
then-
less than that, are you saying it would be more
No,
than 7 feet or
it'd be
less
more,
than?
it'd be more than that farther away from the lake because the short side would now be turned parallel to the lake,
Okay.
to the cottage. So the
Okay.
16 side would go east to west and the 10-foot would go north to south. In the diagram, the rectangle faces north. It's going to face the other way now. So it'll actually be farther away from the lake.
So as long as you're not further decreasing the allowed setback to the water body, that wouldn't be an issue, but you would be permitted to only have the shed a minimum of 19.7 feet from the high water mark.
Yep, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Just a question, does that encroach any closer to the wetlands or are we a good distance away?
No,
We're
the
the opposite
wetlands
side.
are on the wet side of the property, so it wouldn't further encroach.
Okay. I'm
I have
just
a
going to back
question.
up.
I have one extra question. Is there a setback from the road?
Not from the established right of way, if I'm correct, Jenny. It's just from the property lines.
That is correct. The zoning bylaw doesn't have any provisions for setback from a right of way.
Do you have any further questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Newlands?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to reread the motion. That minor variance application, APPN 2024-0028, Newlands for concession 8, part lot 14, geographic township of Oldham, be approved to permit the construction of a 13.9 square meter, well, it won't be 13.9 square meters, pardon me, 160 square feet accessory storage building to be located, well, a minimum of 6 meters or from the high water mark of Sharbot Lake. That the effect of the application is to permit a variance from section 5.6.2 and 4.26.5A of the zoning bylaw 2011-52 as amended to allow for the construction of the shed. And further, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. This motion was moved by Nikki, seconded by Dan Meeks. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Newlands. We are now on to application 2024-0029 for Hasselman. Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, this is an application for Bernard and Carly Hasselman for a property located at 1270 Geeg Road. So the proposal we're looking at here is minor variance to permit the construction of an oversized dock, minor variance for a dock longer than permitted, and a minor variance permit a reduction in, oh, that says 30, it should be 15 meters, sorry, water body setback for a viewing platform. So there's several moving parts going on that will be easier explained in association with the picture that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. So along the shoreline, you'll have what's labeled as a shore deck here, which will be the viewing platform. Part of that is on land and part of that is in the water. So half of the legs will be in the water and anchored to the ground underneath the water. Half will be anchored to the ground on the shore. Attached to that is a cantilever deck area. It's kind of a landing that will be located at the bottom of a fairly extensive set of stairs. Currently a slightly slippery slope down to the lake. Anchored to the cantilever deck will be a ramp. So the cantilever deck is going to have legs on land that extends out over the water, but no legs in the water. Attached to that is going to be a ramp that leads from the deck down to the floating dock. Obviously, the time of year and the height of the water will determine whether that's a ramp or more level, but it does allow the floating dock some ability to move. And then the floating dock will have an area of 10 by 40 or 400 square feet. So it's about twice of what is permitted in the zoning bylaw. So there's several limitations on this property that make it challenging, if not impossible, again, to locate the proposed development in any alternative fashion. The entirety of the shoreline of the subject property is a significantly high and steep slope. It's on a peninsula point area. The entire slope or the entire shoreline within that 30-meter setback is a slope that meets the criteria of an erosion hazard. On the upside, it is well vegetated right now, which all acts to help stabilize it. There's a limited cleared area for a pathway that leads down to the lake, but as I noted, it's not the most stable path or the least slippery path, and the applicants would like to have proper access stairs down to this activity area. As a result of these slopes, it's not really possible to put the viewing platform any further back. Even at 15 meters, you're going to be halfway up a slope. Added to that, the water depth at the shoreline is quite shallow, less than 24 inches for quite an extended area out. So as a result, this floating dock and shore deck combination will serve as essentially the only activity area and sort of enjoyment area outside or within the 30-meter setback. This application was circulated for review to Conservation Authority, as the entirety of it will be either shoreline or in waterworks. So the MVCA did note that they do require permission from them before any of these works could be undertaken. However, they do not have any objections to the application as presented. And they did do a site visit and concurred that it's challenging to put this proposal anywhere else on the property. And we're happy to note that most of that shoreline is naturally vegetated, and the proposed clearing area is less than permitted either in the zoning bylaw or in their own regulations. Due to the location of the dock and the viewing deck, there's no slope stability analysis required prior to any permits being issued from Conservation Authority. Docks do not require building permits to be issued from the township, so you're looking primarily at MVCA permits. However, to do that, they need to have compliance with the township zoning bylaw, so that's why we're doing this minor variance process. There's no comments required for septic or review of that, again, as it's all dock and viewing platform. There's no living space, and there's no public comments received on this application. So planning staff are recommending that, subject to any comments raised tonight, that the committee approve the application as submitted, subject to conditions in the planning report.
Hi, you're with us this evening. Do you have any comments you would like to make, or?
I would just like to note that I can't hear anything that's being said right now.
Yep, the mic, sorry, the mic just came.
All right,
Can you hear me
perfect.
now,
Thank you.
Jenny?
Yes, I can.
So the whole purpose of this was to obviously protect the natural water line. We have absolutely no plans to change our natural water line. We're lazy, so the more natural we can leave it, the better. And then as noted, the depth, the length of the dock, sorry, is due to the shallowness of our waterfront and just for the safety of our boats and our other water sports. So that's why it seems a little excessive, but it is more in sense of the shallow water line and the preservation of the natural water line. So I think that's it. Unless you have questions for us.
Through you, Chair, to Jenny or Andy, you're in the room. I don't think you can participate, but when we build a dock that's this long and it goes into a minor variance, is there any safety concerns with having a dock stuck out like 40 feet plus the 8 feet for the ramp? So 48 feet out into the water.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's an excellent question. And one of the provisions is that the dock would not constitute a navigation hazard. Absolutely a concern, which is one of the things that was reviewed on site. That was one of my big concerns as well at first, looking at the width of the lake and the water body in that area. This is not going to constitute a navigation hazard, and that was definitely something we considered.
I will also note that when we did a site visit, there was a few boats that did pass us while we were standing on the dock, and we confirmed that it wouldn't be an issue.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Jenny. Under the background information, you've highlighted in red a note about the shoreline of Bass Lake. Should that be Elbow Lake, or are you talking about a Bass Lake that has bass in it?
That is an excellent catch. Generally, things in red are things I make a note of myself to change, and I did not. So that is not a lake that has bass. That is, I cut and paste the wrong thing and did not change it to Elbow Lake. So good catch. I did not notice that.
Any other questions from members of the committee? I don't see Bill. Bill doesn't have his hand up. Any questions from members of the public online? I don't see any. So I will read the motion, and I note that Mississippi Valley indicated no negative impact on the waterfront character of Elbow Lake, which was a concern when I first looked at it. So well done. So moved by Duncan and seconded by Lynn that minor variance application 2024-0029 Hasselman for Part Lot 11, Concession 4, Geographic Township of Oso, be approved to permit a dock and viewing platform, shoreline deck, with a total area of 63.5 square meters, or 684 square feet, to be constructed along the shoreline of Elbow Lake. This structure will be composed of 4 separate parts: a floating dock with an area of 37.2 square meters, an access ramp with an area of 4.5 square meters. This ramp will connect the cantilevered deck located at the bottom of the access stairs with the floating dock. The cantilevered deck with an area of 5.6 meters or 60 square feet. This deck will be located at the bottom of the access stairs and protrude over the water and connect to the access ramp. There are no in-water works required to support this deck. And then the viewing platform with an area of 16.4 square meters, that's 176 square feet. This deck will have half of its supports located on the shoreline and half of the supports located in the water and anchored to the bed of the lake. That the effect of the application is to permit a variance from section 4.1.1.13, section 4.1.1.22, and section 4.265, subsection C of the zoning bylaw 2011-52, as amended to allow for the enlarged dock and shoreline deck. And further, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Sounds like a... All right, thank you for coming out. And the dock system sounds very lovely. Next year. All right. So we're moving on to the final minor variance application, and it is number 2024-0032 McKay. And I'll turn it over to Jenny to review this application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for permission to expand an existing legal non-complying storage structure. So this is located at 1121B Summit Road, and the property has frontage on Black Lake. You can see here in the diagram, the existing structure is slightly offset from the lot lines and is shown in red. And the proposed enlarged structure has this blue outline here. So the plan is to demolish the existing structure and sort of reorient the new structure in approximately the same footprint. There'll be no further reduction in water body setback. So there's an existing 15-meter water body setback, which will remain, and a 5-foot side yard setback, and that will remain. So no part of the enlarged structure will be closer to any lot lines or setbacks required than currently. The side yard setback of 5 feet does place the one edge of the storage structure at the top of a retaining wall with a slope that drops off quite a bit to the neighbor's property. As a result, consultation with MBCA Conservation Authority required the completion of a slope stability analysis to ensure that this development didn't impact the stability of either the natural slope or the constructed retaining wall in this area. There were several revisions and back and forth between the applicant's engineer and the conservation engineers. Ultimately, MBCA was satisfied with the proposal as presented and have no objections as presented to this proposal. There's several limitations on this property also. There's the existing development, which you can see there's a cottage and a deck. And as I noted, there's some slopes down to the shoreline in the neighboring property. There's an access driveway next to the proposed structure. And almost immediately behind that and behind the cottage, this property rises quite steeply away from the lake. So again, some slope structural limitations on this property similar to the other properties. As I noted, this was circulated for review, and in the comments it said dated the October 3rd, did request more information. That analysis was completed, and email correspondence with Conservation Authority confirmed that they have no objections as presented, and all other notes in their original comments do stand. They did note that this proposal maximizes the water body setback as much as feasible given the constraints of the property and allows retention of the existing shoreline vegetated buffer between the structure and the shoreline. Once again, no septic comments were required due to this just being a storage structure, no increase in living space. Also, no public comments were received prior to this date. So planning staff are again recommending approval of this application as submitted, subject to any comments that may be received at the meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I understand that Mr. McKay is not online or present. He's out of the country. I don't see anyone else from the public online. So any questions from members of the committee or any comments? Seeing none. I note that the Mississippi Valley was very diligent in ensuring that the slope stability assessment met all the requirements. So,
Yes, they have very thorough engineers.
okay. So moved by Fran, seconded by Duncan, that minor variance application 2024-0032 McKay for Plan 1 1113, Lot 9, Geographic Township of Olden, be approved to permit the enlargement of a 33.4 square meter, that's 360 square feet, legal non-conforming accessory storage structure, and will be located approximately 15 meters from the high water mark of Black Lake. That the effect of the application is to permit a variance from section 5.6.2 and 4.265 subsection A of the zoning bylaw 2011-52 as amended to allow for the reduction in setback. And further, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Is there any other planning business?
No, there is not.
Then I have a motion for adjournment, moved by Cindy and seconded by Fran, that this meeting be adjourned until December 10th, 2024, virtually and in person at Soldiers Memorial Hall, 1107 Garrett Street, Charlotte Lake, or at the call of the chair. It is adjourned at, what's the time?
5:39.
5:39 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.